Most people are not undisciplined because they are weak. They are undisciplined because they are comfortable. Comfort is the most efficient prison ever designed. It requires no guards, no chains, no visible walls. It only requires permission, and most people give that permission willingly. They call it balance. They call it self-care. They call it being human. But beneath those polite names is something older and less flattering. Avoidance. If you observe closely, you will notice something unsettling. The majority of people do not fear failure. They fear structure. They fear the quiet rigidity of discipline because discipline removes excuses. And without excuses, the only thing left is responsibility. Responsibility exposes hierarchy. Hierarchy exposes weakness. And weakness invites consequence. This is why discipline unsettles people. Not because it is loud, not because it is aggressive, but because it is silent and immovable. A disciplined individual does not argue. He does not negotiate with impulses. He does not seek validation for his restraint. He simply acts according to a standard that others cannot see and, therefore, cannot influence. That lack of influence is what disturbs them. Machiavelli understood something that modern morality prefers to ignore. Control is not maintained through emotional persuasion. It is maintained through predictability of strength. When your behavior is governed by impulse, others can manipulate you. When your behavior is governed by approval, others can steer you. But when your behavior is governed by discipline, others cannot calculate you easily. And what cannot be calculated becomes dangerous. Understand this clearly. Discipline is not about productivity. It is about power. The man who wakes early every day is not powerful because of the hour. He is powerful because he does not negotiate with himself. The person who trains consistently is not impressive because of muscle. He is impressive because his mind obeys commands. The one who controls his speech in moments of provocation is not passive. He is measuring. Most conflicts begin when someone loses control of internal tension. Words slip, anger leaks, pride reacts. The disciplined individual appears calm not because he feels nothing, but because he decides what becomes visible. Visibility is leverage. Emotions, when exposed carelessly, become entry points. Every complaint you voice reveals a pressure point. Every uncontrolled reaction reveals a trigger. Every delayed decision reveals hesitation. And hesitation invites domination. Machiavelli did not romanticize virtue. He observed behavior. He understood that human beings are driven by self-interest. Long before morality enters the room, a person does not respect you because you are good. They respect you because you are stable, consistent, and difficult to destabilize. Discipline is the architecture of that stability. Without discipline, you are at the mercy of mood. And mood is a fragile ruler. It shifts with sleep, with weather, with opinion. Imagine building authority on something so unstable. It collapses quietly, but completely. When you become severely disciplined, something subtle begins to change in social dynamics. People hesitate around you, not because you threaten them, because they sense that their usual strategies will not work. They cannot bait you into reaction. They cannot distract you with trivial approval. They cannot exhaust you with emotional chaos. You are not playing the same game. And that separation creates distance. Distance creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates fear. This is not theatrical fear. It is strategic caution. The same caution one uses around someone who does not reveal intentions easily. Humans are comfortable around predictable weaknesses. They relax when they detect insecurity, addiction to praise, fear of rejection. These signals reassure them that you are manageable. Remove those signals, and the atmosphere shifts. You must understand the psychological mechanism behind this. Human interaction is an exchange of vulnerabilities. People bond through shared weaknesses, complaints, gossip, emotional oversharing. These are social currencies. When you reduce participation in these exchanges, others interpret it as superiority or secrecy. They may accuse you of being cold, detached, arrogant. What they mean is that they cannot access you, and access is power. To become so disciplined that it unsettles others, you must first accept isolation. Not dramatic isolation, not loud withdrawal, but internal separation. You cannot crave understanding while building control. Those two desires conflict. One seeks comfort, the other seeks command. Discipline requires the elimination of internal negotiation. Most people negotiate constantly with themselves. I'll start tomorrow. Just this once. I deserve a break. No one will notice. These sentences appear harmless. They are not. They train the mind to prioritize comfort over commitment. Once that pattern is established internally, it extends externally. The same person who negotiates with himself will negotiate under pressure. The same person who excuses his habits will excuse his boundaries, and boundaries are the foundation of authority. Machiavelli warned rulers about appearing weak. But weakness is not loud failure. It is inconsistency. When your standards shift based on who is watching, you teach others that your limits are flexible. Flexible limits invite testing. Testing invites erosion. Eventually, you are no longer in control. You are reacting. Severe discipline eliminates this erosion. It replaces flexibility of impulse with rigidity of principle, not moral principle, personal principle. The difference matters. Morality seeks approval from society. Personal principle seeks alignment with self-interest. Do not misunderstand this. Self-interest is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the understanding that survival and advancement require stability, and stability requires sacrifice. Comfort must be sacrificed. Approval must be sacrificed. Spontaneous indulgence must be sacrificed. Every sacrifice increases tension, and tension, when contained, generates presence. Have you noticed how some individuals command silence without raising their voice? They enter a room and conversations soften. No announcement is made. No threat is spoken. But there is an invisible weight. That weight is controlled tension. They are not impulsive. They are not easily amused. They do not seek attention. Their movements are deliberate. Their speech measured. Their schedule protected. Others sense that disturbing this structure would have consequences. Consequences are rarely verbalized. They are implied through consistency. The disciplined individual does not need to warn you. His history of behavior is the warning. This is where most people fail. They attempt to appear disciplined temporarily. A few weeks of strict habits. A brief period of silence. But discipline that is adopted for appearance eventually collapses under stress. True discipline is not intensity. It is permanence. When permanence is established, your reactions slow down. Not physically, strategically. You do not respond immediately to provocation. You allow silence to stretch. Silence forces the other person to reveal more than they intended. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. In doing so, they expose motives, insecurities, hidden agendas. You simply observe. Observation is superior to reaction. The undisciplined mind seeks immediate emotional relief. It answers quickly, defends quickly, apologizes quickly, argues quickly. It cannot tolerate the discomfort of unresolved tension. But power lives inside unresolved tension. Machiavelli would not advise you to be kind when it costs you leverage, nor would he advise you to be cruel without reason. He would advise calculation, and calculation requires patience. Patience requires discipline. When you discipline your impulses, you also discipline your visibility. Not every thought needs expression. Not every success needs announcement. Not every plan needs exposure. Exposure invites interference. Interference creates friction. Friction slows advancement. This is why severe discipline often appears antisocial. It reduces unnecessary interaction. It filters emotional noise. It rejects environments that reward chaos. People interpret this as intimidation because they are accustomed to emotional accessibility. When you deny access, you disrupt the equilibrium of social exchange. They will test you. They will joke about your rigidity. They will attempt to tempt you. They will question your intensity, not because they are concerned, because your discipline highlights their lack of it. Your restraint becomes a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. At this stage, you will feel pressure to soften, to reassure, to demonstrate that you are still relatable, that you are not judging them. This is the trap. Reassurance reduces tension. Reduced tension reduces authority. Authority does not beg for acceptance. The disciplined individual understands something subtle about fear. Fear does not come from aggression. It comes from unpredictability combined with capability. If others cannot predict your breaking point, and they suspect it is far beyond theirs, they proceed carefully. Carefulness is respect. You do not need admiration. Admiration is unstable. It shifts with trends and opinions. Respect rooted in caution is more durable. But caution only exists when your behavior is consistent under stress. Stress is the true audit of discipline. Anyone can appear controlled when circumstances are convenient. The test arrives when you are insulted, ignored, challenged, tempted, exhausted. If your structure collapses in these moments, others recalibrate their assessment of you. They update your value. Human beings constantly update value assessments subconsciously. They measure reliability, emotional stability, decisiveness. They watch for cracks. A single uncontrolled outburst can undo months of composed presence. Discipline eliminates cracks, not by suppressing emotion permanently, but by containing its expression strategically. You may ask why such severity is necessary. Why not live lightly? Why not allow occasional inconsistency? Because the world does not operate on your intentions. It operates on perception, and perception is shaped by patterns. If your pattern is precision, you are treated with caution. If your pattern is fluctuation, you are treated as negotiable. Negotiable people are maneuvered, and maneuvered people eventually realize they are not in control of their own direction. The most dangerous position is believing you are independent while your impulses are steering you. Severe discipline reclaims that steering. It is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It is often boring. But boredom is a filter. Those who cannot endure boredom cannot endure mastery. Mastery is frightening because it implies independence from emotional manipulation. Imagine confronting someone who does not react to insult, does not chase praise, does not overshare plans, does not indulge distraction. What leverage do you possess? Very little, and that imbalance creates unease. This unease is often mislabeled as intimidation, but intimidation is simply the recognition of limited control. When others feel limited control over you, they adjust their behavior. They become measured, careful with words, conservative with challenges, not because you demanded it, because you earned it through discipline. If you continue down this path long enough, you will notice something else. Opportunities shift. People begin to defer subtly. They consult you before acting. They test your reactions indirectly. Your silence carries implication. This is not charisma. It is structural dominance. And structural dominance is built, not declared. Understand this final truth for now. The goal is not to be liked. The goal is not to be feared theatrically. The goal is not even to be admired. The goal is to be unshakable. When you become unshakable, others must adapt to you. And adaptation is the beginning of hierarchy. Discipline is the mechanism. Not loud discipline. Not visible suffering. Not performative hardship. Cold, consistent, irreversible discipline. The kind that does not announce itself. The kind that does not explain itself. The kind that does not bend under observation. They begin to sense that you are no longer available for subtle control. Most human interaction is not direct domination. It is suggestion, tone shifts, strategic disappointment, withdrawal of warmth, raised eyebrows, delayed responses. These are small levers people use to shape behavior in others. Most never notice it happening. They simply adjust, soften, apologize, explain. You used to do this as well. You adjusted your voice to avoid tension. You explained yourself to avoid misinterpretation. You compromised standards to avoid isolation. Not because you were weak, because you were socialized to equate harmony with safety. But harmony, when purchased at the cost of internal order, erodes authority. And authority is not something granted. It is something preserved. Severe discipline preserves it. When you remove the need to be understood, you remove one of the primary tools used against you. Misunderstanding loses its power. Disapproval loses urgency. Silence from others loses threat. This is when the atmosphere changes. Conversations with you become shorter, cleaner, less chaotic. People reveal less emotion around you, but more intention. They test your responses carefully, looking for openings. They are searching for flexibility. If they find it, they relax. If they do not, they recalibrate. Understand what is happening beneath the surface. Human beings instinctively assess dominance hierarchies through emotional resilience. The one who reacts more loses position. The one who explains more loses position. The one who seeks reassurance surrenders position entirely. You do not need to dominate visibly. You need only to remain composed while others fluctuate. Fluctuation signals instability. Instability invites direction. Direction implies control. If you remain internally stable while others oscillate between emotion and impulse, they will unconsciously begin orienting around your steadiness. This is not manipulation. It is gravity. Discipline creates psychological gravity. People orbit what feels grounded. But gravity requires mass, and mass is built through repeated acts of self-control that no one applauds. Early mornings without announcement, work completed without display, provocations ignored without commentary, temptations declined without negotiation. Every time you override impulse, you increase internal mass. Over time, that mass becomes visible without explanation. There is another layer most do not consider. Severe discipline does not only affect others, it changes your perception of them. You begin to notice patterns you previously missed. Who complains habitually? Who flatters strategically? Who withdraws when denied access? Who becomes hostile when they cannot influence you? You begin to see that much of what is called friendship is mutual convenience. Much of what is called loyalty is proximity. Much of what is called respect is conditional. This realization is not dramatic. It is quiet. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. Machiavelli observed that men are quicker to offend one who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared. This is not an endorsement of cruelty. It is a recognition of human nature. Love invites familiarity. Familiarity reduces caution. Reduced caution invites testing. Fear, when subtle and controlled, creates boundaries. But there is a form of fear more efficient than aggression. It is the fear of wasting effort. When people realize that emotional pressure does not move you, they stop applying it. When they realize temptation does not distract you, they stop offering it. When they realize drama does not provoke you, they stop staging it around you. Not out of respect for your feelings, out of recognition that you are inefficient to manipulate. Inefficiency discourages interference. This is how discipline becomes a shield. Yet shields are heavy. You will feel the weight of separation. Conversations will feel shallower. Invitations will feel less frequent. You will sense subtle distance. This is the tax. The majority cannot remain close to what exposes their inconsistency. Your structure will highlight their lack of it. They will interpret this as judgment, even if you speak none. You must accept this without resentment. Resentment is emotional leakage. Leakage reduces control. Remember, the objective is not isolation. It is insulation. Insulation protects direction. Direction is the true currency of power. Without it, you drift according to external forces, trends, opinions, emotional weather. With it, you move intentionally, even if slowly. Most people are not defeated by opposition. They are defeated by distraction. Their focus fractures under minor temptations. Their goals dissolve under social pressure. Their standards bend under fatigue. Discipline is not intensity in moments of motivation. It is the refusal to bend under fatigue. Fatigue is revealing. When tired, the mask slips. When stressed, principles are tested. When frustrated, restraint weakens. If you can remain structured under these conditions, others sense durability. Durability intimidates, not because it threatens harm, because it implies endurance. Endurance wins quietly. Consider negotiations. The one who can wait longer often wins. The one who can tolerate silence often gains advantage. The one who can endure discomfort without signaling desperation controls pace. Pace controls outcome. Undisciplined individuals rush. They seek closure. They seek relief from tension. In doing so, they reveal their threshold. When your threshold is unknown, others hesitate to push. This hesitation is power. Severe discipline also alters your relationship with time. You stop living for immediate gratification. You stop measuring progress by daily emotional satisfaction. You begin measuring by trajectory. Trajectory does not care about today's mood. This long view creates detachment. Detachment reduces vulnerability to short-term manipulation. If someone insults you today, but you are oriented toward outcomes months ahead, the insult loses scale. It becomes small against distance. Distance shrinks provocation. This is why disciplined individuals appear unemotional. It is not absence of feeling. It is prioritization. They prioritize long-term positioning over short-term reaction. Positioning is strategic. Reaction is reflexive. Reflexes are predictable. Strategy is not. Machiavelli valued foresight above virtue. Virtue without foresight collapses under pressure. Foresight without virtue may appear cold, but it survives. Survival is underestimated in moral conversations. Yet survival is prerequisite to influence. You cannot shape environments you cannot withstand. Discipline fortifies endurance. There will come a point when someone attempts to challenge your rigidity directly. They may accuse you of being obsessive, extreme, unbalanced. They may suggest you are missing out. They may imply that your restraint is insecurity disguised as strength. Do not rush to defend. Defense concedes that their opinion requires resolution. Instead, observe the source. Often, such accusations arise from discomfort. Your refusal to indulge exposes their dependency on indulgence. Your refusal to complain exposes their reliance on complaint. Your refusal to explain exposes their addiction to validation. People defend their habits aggressively when those habits are threatened by example. You are not threatening them verbally. You are threatening them by contrast. Contrast creates tension. Tension demands interpretation. Most will interpret in a way that protects their ego. Let them. Your task is not to correct perception. It is to maintain structure. Structure accumulates silently. Years of discipline compound into presence that cannot be replicated quickly. Others may attempt to imitate the surface, the routine, the posture, the silence. But without internal alignment, it collapses. Alignment is coherence between decision and action. If you decide and then execute without negotiation, repeatedly, you train your nervous system to obey intention. This obedience is rare. Most people are ruled by fluctuating impulses. When your impulses obey you, you no longer feel fragmented. Fragmentation is exhausting. Internal conflict drains energy. Discipline removes conflict by establishing hierarchy within yourself. Desire is subordinate to principle. Emotion is subordinate to strategy. Comfort is subordinate to direction. Once this hierarchy stabilizes internally, it projects externally. You begin to move with less hesitation. You speak with fewer filler words. You maintain eye contact longer. You decline invitations without elaborate justification. You enforce boundaries without raising volume. Volume is compensation for lack of certainty. Certainty speaks softly, and softness, when backed by consistency, is unsettling. There is one final layer most never reach. When discipline becomes identity rather than effort, you stop thinking about resisting temptation. The resistance becomes automatic. The structure becomes natural. At this stage, fear shifts again. It is no longer that others fear your reaction. They begin to fear your patience. Patience combined with discipline suggests calculation. Calculation suggests preparation. Preparation suggests inevitability. Inevitability is intimidating. When others sense that you are building steadily while they fluctuate, they feel the imbalance over time. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. They sense that if conflict ever arises, you will not be improvising. You will be prepared. Prepared individuals do not scramble. They do not panic. They do not reveal desperation. And desperation is the scent of prey. This is the uncomfortable truth most avoid. Human beings, even in civilized environments, still assess strength subconsciously. They test boundaries. They observe reactions. They calculate advantage. Severe discipline removes easy advantage. And when advantage disappears, aggression recedes. In the end, the objective was never to scare others theatrically. It was to become internally ordered to such a degree that external chaos cannot penetrate you easily. When chaos cannot penetrate, it moves elsewhere. You remain still, measured, unmoved, and in a world addicted to reaction. The one who does not react becomes the axis around which others turn. That is when you realize something quietly disturbing. They are not afraid of your anger. They are afraid that you do not need them. And nothing unsettles people more than realizing they have no leverage over you. In the end, discipline was never about productivity. It was never about waking early, working longer, or appearing composed. It was about removing leverage. Every uncontrolled impulse is leverage. Every emotional reaction is leverage. Every need for approval is leverage. When you eliminate those, something shifts in the structure of your reality. People sense it before they understand it. They hesitate where they once pushed. They measure words where they once spoke freely. They calculate where they once assumed access. Not because you demanded respect, because you became difficult to influence. That is the quiet transformation most will never attempt. It requires sacrificing comfort for control, popularity for position, immediate relief for long-term authority. Most will choose comfort, a few will choose structure, and over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. One life is reactive, constantly negotiating with emotion, swayed by opinion, steered by pressure. The other is deliberate, internally ordered, insulated from chaos, moving forward without noise. Power does not always announce itself. Often, it is simply the absence of visible weakness. If this perspective sharpens something, in you if it exposed patterns, you can no longer ignore them. You already understand the direction this path leads. There is more to uncover, more to refine, more uncomfortable truths most people avoid. Subscribe, and continue studying the dynamics others pretend do not exist. Because once you see the structure behind behavior, you stop being part of the game. You begin to control it.